All right, welcome everyone back to Seaweed Brain, a Percy Jackson podcast in our Sea of Monsters era. All aboard. Choo choo toot toot, etc. We have a very, very special guest today. We have Shae Spence Worthy, the writer of episode 204, which y'all just watched. You don't want to miss this conversation. Stick around. All right, everyone, welcome back. My name is Erica, joined as always by my co-host Carter. What's up, Carter?
Hello, hi everyone.
We're so excited. I'm like a little bit nervous. We have another writer on the podcast this week. It is Shae Spence Worthy. Hello, Shae. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Seaweed Brain Pod. I'm happy to be here.
We are so thrilled to have you. I keep saying, like, with each new episode that comes out, I'm like, this is my favorite episode. But I do think 204 is my actual favorite episode, not just of the season, but of the entire show thus far. This episode is just chef's kiss. Everything from the emo bangs to the found family to the girls struggling and to Percy just going la 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 la, having the best time. We have a lot to discuss about the episode itself, but first, tell us a little bit about like what inspired you to be an artist and a writer when you were a kid.
Okay, so I think I was always predisposed towards this path. I think I was always a watcher and observer, and I think a lot of writers have that journey themselves. But I thought I wanted to be an actor first. I went to Northwestern for theater. Quickly realized it wasn't quite right. Took an intro to screenwriting class and was like, "This is the thing." And I sort of, once that felt good, created this unofficial conservatory writing program at Northwestern. So I was studying playwriting, studying creative writing nonfiction, stayed on the acting track, and I will always say that I think acting is the best writing class that you can take. I highly recommend it to any writers. But yeah, I sort of put my focus there, and then after I graduated, I did the things that most writers want to do after they graduate, which is move directly to Beijing, where I spent a little bit of time in my early 20s, just really traveling Asia. Which was great. And I also recommend that if you want to be a writer, like go do something like out of your sort of your usual. I thought it was a really great, useful tool for me. And I wound up teaching more when I got back to the States, teaching film with Lincoln Center to 3rd and 6th graders. Finally, I moved out to Los Angeles, where I landed at Sony Animation, and I worked with the love the family at Sony Animation. I was the assistant to Christine Belson, who's the head of the studio still. And it really was such a masterclass in leadership and in telling stories where diversity is folded in but is not the point. I think that it was just really like I got there when Spider-Verse was just getting made, and it's like this is a great movie with a Black lead, and it was just really special. And I just getting to watch that movie get made was a really incredible thing to see up close. And I wound up sticking around at Sony for a few more years as a development executive, working across features and series. And then finally, it was time to do the thing that I actually set out to do, which is to write for television. And I wrote something, it got optioned, and that led to starting to staff on shows, and that was great. And I have this weird, but I think is common for my age in 2025 scenario where before Percy, I think I'd worked on 4 seasons of television, and Percy was the first that actually went into production. Like this is the first time that I'm seeing something that I wrote get made. And so that's the sort of amazing thing, because everything that I've worked on has been amazing. But to the scale of Percy, the fact that I grew up reading these books, the fact that, these books are part of, I think, I've always had an interest in mythology, and these books were part of that. And so it just felt like, how did I wind up like it was just very cool with this like really big vast show and this big vast episode, but it's been really wonderful, and it's just like a dream. Like it's really just a dream working on the show, and not just saying that because the episode got made, but because but because there are really wonderful people all throughout, the pipeline of what it takes to make a TV show. And this
Yeah.
has just been, great. So that's sort of my really fast path to where I am. I really am interested in, and I think this is where the interest dovetail. My interest is in what I call character-driven genre. So I love what genre can do for stories, and I love, telling stories that are we all can relate to in some way, but just adding that turning it up a little bit with whether that's monsters or mystery or magic, and Percy is kind of all all of it. And so it's sort of really my sweet spot. And this episode really is, I think all of them do this. It's sort of that um, Buffy had I think their sort of tagline was high school is hell. And like every episode was sort of like a way some sort of demon monster was a representative of something in high school. And I think Percy does something similar often where, rock in a hard place, it's sort of like taking it and making it larger than
Yes.
life. And all of the juicy stuff that comes with that makes it fun to write and hopefully fun to watch. So yeah, that's my path.
That was so succinct. Wow. You really are
Oh,
good at that.
oh yeah.
Did you, speaking of genre, like what were your foundational texts? Like what were Shae's sacred
Ooh,
texts, like the movies that inspired you, or be it books or TV shows that made you feel like this is the thing I want to do?
I think Heroes was kind of
Oh my
was
god.
like my first show where I was on the message boards and I was talking theory, and I would like I went to like this all boys school where like usually like lunchroom conversation was like, football season, and me and my table was like talking about what's going to happen with Claire Bennett next episode. It was very like, well, I think there was this shot, and I think that might mean something here. And like it's one of the things, that I love about television, and television's my first love. I think, this is the film industry, but television really is my first love. And I think it's because of the community that comes with the episodic drop,
Yes.
with
Yeah.
where it's going to go and what we want to see for these characters and what's going to happen next season. And it's movies can have that, absolutely, especially franchises, especially certain genres. Like I'm a huge horror fan. I think horror is a really strong community.
Yes.
But I think Heroes was the first show like that for me. And it's cool getting to work on a show that similarly, like there's so much that gets launched after an episode. Like there's so much conversation, and it's really interesting to see where people are like on the right track, not on the right track, having like a sort of fascinating reading that I never even thought of. It's really fun. It's really fun. And I feel really fortunate to get to be in a space like it.
I was just thinking about how I want to rewatch Heroes. Like so like that it's time. It's time. I loved it so much as a kid, and now I need to like go back and figure out like what it inseminated in my brain that I don't really know I subconsciously took from it as a
Totally.
kid.
Yeah.
Heroes was the show that like I convinced my parents to let me stay up past my bedtime so that I could watch Heroes on Monday nights.
It's a good one to watch. It's a good one to beg for. Please, Heroes is a good one to get special permission for.
That also begs the question for me. What did you think of Weapons? Are you allowed to tell us what you thought of Weapons?
I'm allowed to tell you what I think, but wait, I'm curious what the connection you're drawing is.
You were just talking about horror. And and like event horror, and I was like, this was the big event horror movie of this, and I watched it. We covered it on the podcast on the Patreon, and we had a lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
And
I love Weapons. What I love the moment that horror is having. Period. Like my favorite thing is that every single type of horror I feel is kind of being represented right now.
Mm.
And did we talk about Paranormal Activity?
No.
I saw the show Paranormal Activity. It was in LA recently. And it's sort of, I don't know if this was on purpose, but every scene to me was a different type of horror. Like the way that it was sort of.
Ooh.
And I, as a person who watches sort of everything but has my favorites, I like that we've been able to eventize a few different types of horror this time, because it gets so kicked in the corner and treated like it's not special horror.
Mm-hmm.
And so Weapons to be sort of like lauded on every level, critically. People who are afraid of scary movies went and watched it. People who love scary movies went and watched it. People who are there more to laugh than to be scared watched it and loved it. The fact that we sort of have an iconic. I love when an iconic villain gets born, and I love that Aunt Gladys has been born. I want Aunt Gladys and the Babadook to go on an adventure together. I don't know
Oh,
what it means, but I want to see them on a road trip. I can't wait for
Priscilla,
the
Queen of the
prequel.
Desert. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, but it's the Babadook and Gladys.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, no, I think it's I love witches in I'm supernatural horror is definitely a is a
Hmm.
place that I like. I love witches. Um, I love all of it. I'm really excited. Bring Her Back is probably the horror movie that's punched me in the gut the most this year,
Right.
and I am so sort of like watched it and it hasn't left me alone since I
Oh,
watched it. But then you've got Sinners. Like there's just like this. Every one of those movies is so different,
yeah.
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and I'm just excited that the whole sort of family's at the party. I feel like
Yes.
usually it's like we get one a year, and this
Yeah.
year it was like no, we get a few bites at the sort of big moneyed apple. So that's just exciting.
I can't believe Sinners was this year. I really thought it was last. It was
It's
not even like
it was
it was like middle of this year.
it's like middle of the year. Yeah, yeah,
Oh my goodness. It's been a
yeah.
long one.
It's been a long year.
Can we ask you a little bit more about your executive era?
Sure.
What did that entail? Like, I assume I'm imagining you like reading a lot of scripts and
Yes.
like passing off to other people and like
Yeah.
conferring about what's going to get made. Is that roughly what happened? How did it inform your time afterwards as a writer?
It's informed my time in ways that I'm still kind of learning complimentary. I think so basically the life of an executive, at least when I was there, which was an unusual time because I essentially got promoted and then we went right into COVID, which was not ideal. And we were
Oh
going into
wow.
COVID at a time when animation was the only thing that could get made. So as
Hmm.
opposed to like a lot of people were like things were calming down, we were the busiest that we'd ever been, or at least that I'd ever been. And so we were working on the feature space. That's sort of our bread and butter. We've been doing that for a while. So it
Hmm.
is. Let me try to. I used to be really good at splitting this up. It's reading lots of scripts and seeing and like trying to meet talent that you think is going to be good to have in the ecosystem of the company. If they
Hmm.
have pitches, it's hearing those pitches, and if they feel good, moving them up the ladder. It's also trying to marry ideas that don't have writers necessarily yet or don't have directors yet and helping to sort of create that marriage because
Hmm.
sometimes a movie will come to us that is coming from like a writer loves this idea and they're telling the story. It's not uncommon for there to be an idea that an executive is excited about but is like, I'm not a writer though, so let's find a writer who can come up with an idea for this that can help us make this into a movie. So that will happen. On the flip side, we were sort of new to the series space. Big Sony does animated television shows. Big Sony being not Sony Animation. Sony
Hmm.
Animation was new to making its own television shows.
Mm.
Hmm.
So we were sort of figuring out what that looked like for us, a company that's more on the feature side usually. But it's a sort of similar thing, reading lots of scripts, staffing rooms, taking shows from pitch all the way through to production. And it was, again, it was a very up close look at what it takes to get a TV show made. It was a clear sense of the sort of it just takes a long time. It takes a really long time, and I think there were things that moved very quickly, and there are sort of people who are very good at that. But things take a long time. There are a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
Mm.
I think it's made me really feel quite fortunate because I think there are two big differences that sort of got me to make the jump. The first is I think the job of the good executive is to come up with good questions about the material, and the
Mm.
job of
Hmm.
the writer is to come up with good answers. And I was
Hmm.
increasingly realized I think I'm more interested in the answers than the questions. Like it's fun, but I want to be coming up with the answers.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing is that as a writer, you are saying what you want to be on. Whereas an executive, you're basically handed projects. Like it's sort of like
Right.
these are the things you're going to do, and hopefully that makes sense. But as a writer, it can sort of be like, this show is amazing, and I don't know that I'm the person to be on it, you know. And so that sort of freedom has been nice. Everything that I've worked on has been something that, you know, I'm not sort of in a place to be picky or anything, but I do get to say, like, this is the kind of thing that I want. Like, it's a conversation with your reps of like, this is the kind of show that I want to work on. And so I've gotten to work on things that have all been very much up my alley. And that's also been a really wonderful part of being on the writing side of things.
Yeah.
There are obvious trade-offs, you know. there's a gulf you step off of where suddenly, like, you don't know when you're going to get paid, and you don't know when you're going to work, and you don't know if and when you'll get on health insurance, because that's not immediate. But once you're in the guild, I can only speak to my experience, which is completely abnormal. Like, it's very unusual. I think to go from like, I want to be a writer, I'm going to be an executive, I'm going to be a writer. But yeah, I've been pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, things have been glad for the transition, but also really glad for the background. And I think also, and this is sort of maybe more existential than practical, but I think it's made me in a very useful way careful about where the romance exists in the creative process. And I say this, I think this is really necessary right now. This Hollywood is an industry first, but there's romantics within the industry. Like I think all of us who do
There
the
still
creative
are.
stuff, we are there. But the thing is, and the way that you maintain it, I believe, and I think this is partially coming from an executive background, is knowing when the romance happens. The romance from
Mm.
writing a feature is between me and the page, and it's between me and like
Mm.
my writing family who I might share it with. The thing I love about television is that there's so much romance in the room. Like, that's the beauty of a room, is that you're not doing it alone. It's not just you and the page. It's you and your peers and people who like have like such smart brains on that thing that you are still figuring out how to approach that stuff. And like, you're just learning and shaping, and it just feels, for those rooms are generally 20 weeks, it's so romantic, you know, for me
Yeah.
anyway. Like, I love it. I love the puzzle of it. I love my coworkers. I love, you know, I just love that part. But then there's a part where it gets less romantic. And I think I've been able to, like, the before this call, Seaweed Pod, my agents called me like right before this started, and it was about a script that I had sent them, a feature script. And I knew, like, once I send this to my agents, the romance is paused. Like,
Yes.
now this is a different conversation. And that's not sad to me. It's just the reality of what it looks like, for better or worse, for this industry to be what it is. And so I had a really lovely, romantic, and sometimes torturous, which romance can be torturous, experience writing this feature. It was exhausting. And now it's in the world, and for better or worse, you know, I get to like be a little bit less romantic about it, and figure out like shopping and shaping and packaging and all that stuff that's more politics than it is, you know, anything else. But I think that that's a really useful thing if you're a person who's trying to get into this, or you're in it, and especially if you're early. I think a way to not get disenchanted is to be clear. I'm sorry if you're hearing cell phone ring right now. I don't know where my grandmother's phone is. But I think a way to help from being disenchanted is just knowing where the romance is, and knowing when there's going to be a little bit less of it, and knowing the romance will still, like, it's not gone. It's just paused for now. And I think that's been useful for me.
That's wildly useful advice. I'm trying to finish a feature script right now, and I'm in the phase where it's not feeling romantic anymore. So
Yeah.
that is really, really helpful. Yeah. It's
Right.
important to be able to distinguish what is the business and what is like the artistry, and that those
Totally.
things have to coexist. Otherwise, nothing's ever going to get made.
Totally.
The thing you said about executives asking questions and writers answering them reminded me when I got to go to one of Sarah Watson's panels at San Diego Comic-Con, and they all showed up wearing t-shirts that say, "But why now?" Because that's the question that they're like sick of getting asked constantly by studio heads and executives.
Yeah.
It was just black t-shirts with big white words that say, "But why now?"
It's so funny. I love Sarah Watson so much. That's so funny. Yeah, that's part of it. That's part of it. And it definitely it helps me that like I have the executive questions in my mind before they get asked to me.
Yeah,
You
do you have
know,
to
like I
turn that
already
off?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
I do. I absolutely do. I have to like sort of I've named that voice in my head. Whether it's the executive or just like the inner critic. I think we all have, even if you don't have an
What's their
inner
name?
executive, I'm not going to tell you. I don't want to I don't
Names
want to
have
I don't
power.
want I don't want to give him more power. He's so loud. He's so loud. But it's just like I got this advice from like a professional development person when I was an executive who said, name your inner critic and like pull it out of your head and say, thank you. You're sometimes useful. You're not useful right now. And put it in a cage while you're writing.
Yeah.
And that has been something that has been really useful. Is just being like, oh, I haven't yanked you out and said thank you, but not right now. So yeah, that's the exec goes, but the exec can be very useful at other points when you're like approaching certain moments. It's like, oh, actually, like, what are the things that are going to come my way? How can I get ahead of them? Do I want to get ahead of them on the page versus ahead of them in a conversation? Like, I know what you're going to ask, and I already have the answer ready to go. So yeah, I think that that's been useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With speaking of all that like agent stuff and like and pitching and what you learned, like so to get into the Percy room, did you like write a spec script, or was this something your agents were like they're looking, or was this something where you were like, I am looking for Percy because I read these books and I know that they're looking.
Yeah.
Can I get in that room?
I was trying to think about how specific to be. So hold on 1 second.
Take your time.
Can you hear my grandmother yelling?
I can't hear the specific words.
1 second. I'm feeling grateful that I decided to wear pants to this. You have a sample. That's usually how you got picked up, signed, etc. with your agent, so that you already had something that you'd written. How I got to Percy was as I've mentioned, been on a few shows that hadn't gotten made, and there was a show that I'd heard of that was not Percy, that was sort of like hiring younger writers, and like their episodes were getting made, and it was happening sort of fast. And so I asked to meet with the executive who was on that show, to just take a general meeting and sort of like say what I'm into, give him my sort of spiel. And in that meeting, that exec was like, did you read Percy Jackson? And I was like, of course I read Percy Jackson. I had no idea that Percy, because usually once something's like on deadline or something like that, it's already handled.
Right.
It's cast, it's all of the stuff is already done. And so I had no idea that Percy season 2 is starting to look. And so that led to me meeting with the team. And then the unusual thing is I met with the team, was it a full year before we started? It was like I met with the team when I was coming off of a show. For some reason, like things, it was sort of like now I think they were doing a mini room. So it was
They
like
had the mini room, yeah. And there was also the strikes, and yeah, it was a weird timeline.
Yes. So I actually entered a different room. I was like in a different room. The strike happened. The strike ended. My room finished or sort of wrapped. And then I got the call top of last year that was like, you're going to be on Percy. And I was like, that was like over a year ago. I had no idea that I was even still in the mix or in consideration. But obviously I was very excited about it. And it was, I had just watched all season 1, truly like right before I got that call. And so it was just like a really cool thing. And then, that was the way to Percy, and the rest is history.
Wow. All right. Now we're in Percy land.
We're in Percy land.
We just had Tamara on the podcast, what will be last week. And she was kind of telling us about how.
Which Tamara?
Oh, not Tamara.
Okay.
Tamara, not Tamara?
Okay.
Tamara, not Tamara. Yeah.
That's actually helpful.
Yeah. They haven't fully like released Tamara to like the world yet, to speak on things.
Yeah.
They're slowly releasing her out into the world.
That makes sense. Yeah, she's not been released in the show yet. So
yeah, she hasn't been in the
this episode.
Yeah, well,
that's so true. We don't know what they have cooking.
A
Christmas Eve interview with Tamara. I don't know.
I love that.
We had Tamara, writer of 203, on, and she was telling us about how like it was sort of the process of it's very collaborative, but you kind of get assigned an episode and you get told like go out, write this, come back, and then talk about it further, and then you kind of keep that process going.
Mhm.
When you were given like episode 4, were you like, yes?
So the way that it worked in season 2 is that, and this has never happened to me before, was that Craig Silverstein,
Mhm.
showrunner, asked us like, "Do you have feelings?" It was sort of like we'd gotten a sense of, I don't remember how deep we were in it, but we gotten like the mini room had broken down. A mini room, for those who don't know, is just a smaller room of writers, generally like all high level writers, figuring out sort of whatever. But in this case, the broad strokes of what the season might sort of entail, what they
Mhm,
probably aren't
mhm.
going to do, what they are definitely going to do. And so we had a sense of like, these are the episodes, and and this episode will be these couple of chapters. And
Right.
Mhm.
so all I knew is that I didn't want Cece's Island. That's all I said. And because specifically I'd been working on a project that had to do with Medusa, separately from Percy verse and now retired
Ah.
project, sadly. But I was like, I don't want my Circes to speak to each other because they
Mhm,
were in
Mm.
that
mhm.
project. And so I was like, I just don't want Circe's Island. But every episode had something I was excited about and something I was nervous about. And thankfully, when Craig came into my office and told me I was getting 4, I was like, okay. He sort of broke down what he wanted me to focus on, and like sort of like,
Mm.
this is why I think that you and 4 are a match, which was very
Mhm,
useful.
mhm.
Um, and then I was sort of talking casually in the sort of greater room with people, and I was talking to Daphne, Daphne Olive, a friend of your show,
Friend of the
friend of us
podcast.
all, friend of us all. I was saying like the thing that makes me a little bit nervous about 4 is the flashbacks. I tend to
Mm.
not like flashbacks.
Mm, mm,
Mm.
mm.
And she said to me sort of the most useful thing, which was, that's exactly why you should have this episode. Is like, you're going to write the version of flashbacks that don't bother you. Because the
Yeah.
reason
Yeah.
why I tend not to like them is that I find that they can be momentum killers. And so
Mhm,
it's like,
mhm.
I'm having so much fun in the front story, let's go back. And it's like, I'm having fun. And I think the way that flashbacks have worked for me is when it's sort of the ball is being handed from the front to the past, to present,
Mhm.
past. It's sort of like you need they both need each other to get to the end of the story. And so that was the shape of, that was sort of the starting point of like, how do we make these flashbacks that I'm excited about.
Mhm.
And I think, I mean, I know that I'm excited by them. I'm pleased with the way that it with the way that it turned out. But I think, that starting point of like thinking about why they don't sometimes work for me was really helpful in making sure that these felt different. And
Yeah.
then on the other end, I think what was exciting was, one of the things Craig said to me was, write it vast. And I'm coming from shows where usually, not to say that budget's always a concern, but like very small budget shows generally,
Mhm.
where it's like we're
Mhm.
thinking about being economical. And I think it was really exciting and different to sort of be like charged with writing the big version, and then like, I'll pull it back. He'll pull it back if it needs to get pulled back, but like, write the
Mhm,
big version
mhm.
of
Yeah.
it. And so that was really exciting too. And it's funny, like the final moment of the episode,
Yeah.
I thought that there's no way they're gonna do that. I was like, that's not gonna. I was like, that's really cool, but they're not gonna do it. And so for it to happen was like, wow, okay,
Can
like
we ask
that's
what was on the page when you were like, what was like the Mouse
We had the
Maximus
action
version
lines.
of, like, did you write like ship disappears into plank by plank cyclone, or
it was the idea of and to reference an earlier question, Avatar: The Last Airbender was another huge show for me, and so it was
Mhm,
this
mhm,
idea
mhm.
of, we've
Period.
got this force of swirling water,
Mhm.
we got this force of wind. Like, what happens? And like, it's an Avatar thing that happens all the time of like, what happens when two superpowered people work together? And this is sort of
Mhm.
like the reverse. It's like, what happens when two huge elemental forces are
Mhm.
like working together, but in a way that is not benefiting you. And I think
Mhm.
the language was something about like the boat being like torn asunder. It was sort of like that was the language I think was sort of used. And so that was what was on the page, and they did that. They did that.
You wrote Sozin's Comet like the end of Avatar season 3 with the
They
swirling elements.
It was yeah, I was like, that's cool." It's you're always looking for especially a person like me who loves, like, powers and all that stuff. It's like, what's something that we haven't quite seen before on this kind of scale, and so, just like, yeah, let's see. And I tend to be and this is one of the reasons why I was surprised that I got 4, although I think you see it in 4. I feel like I tend to be theater background, whatever it is, like character, intimate, sort of like
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
where my brain goes often, um, and I think that is a thing that is about like the sort of episode is like massive scope,
Mhm.
incredibly intimate emotional stories inside of it,
Yeah, yeah.
and I've for whatever reason written a lot of episodes that are around a loss that's about to happen or a loss that's just happened. Um,
Mm, mm.
and that may continue. But
Oh, oh,
I think,
oh, oh.
uh, I think that that's sort of been a place that I just know. I sort of I know those low spots very well, and I like writing to them. And I think this episode, sort of in that sort of paralleling of of the sort of large and vast and divine with the sort of intimate and personal and relatable,
Mhm,
I think that it just made sense that these characters are if we're going to really do Rock in a Hard Place, that
mhm,
these characters who've done fantastic, incredible things already, how do we put them in even dire straits?
mhm.
And that was sort of one of the challenges I think of trying of making the episode work, and I hope that we achieve that well.
Yeah. No,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
Because it's the rock in the hard place of Skill and Charybdis, prophecy, whatever, but it's also the rock in the hard place that we're experiencing within the flashbacks. Like Thalia is between a rock and a hard place, not wanting to go to camp, but also not wanting to do to Annabeth what her mother did to her for the
totally.
generational trauma.
Yes.
Talk to us about the found family. Was that the thing you were excited about? I mean, I know you mentioned that the flashbacks were the scary thing. What was the exciting
Yeah.
thing?
What was the exciting thing was, I mean, getting one of the exciting things to me was getting Dior in my episode. I was, I
Ah!
was, because the in sort of like the broad strokes sketch of like what 4 might look like. Clarice is not like it's sort of like exactly what's in the books essentially,
Right.
Mhm,
and I was just like, that gives me latitude. I get to do something like more, and I
Mhm.
think that sort of led to this it there's lots of things that were exciting to me. I think um, it is a portrayal of Percy that really highlights what I think is his most important superpower, which is his empathy.
Empathy,
mhm,
yeah.
mhm,
And in
mhm,
this episode, we watch him use that power on a number of characters who need it.
Therapist
mhm.
Percy.
Therapist Percy. I think that that's really great and important, and a very different type of hero than we've seen. Like we get to see both versions of his him at sort of high power, but I think
Yeah.
it's very important. I think Annabeth is the character that I'm probably the room reminds me that I've got a lot of Annabeth in me, but I knew that, but just reminded of it. And I think in a way that I didn't realize until watching the episode back, there was a lot that I was going on in my personal life in when I was writing that episode that I think is showing up on the page as well.
Mhm.
And I think the experience of being a person for whom thinking things through analytically and has worked and has been
Mm.
rewarded. Like
Mhm,
being
mhm.
the person who's thought through every bad version of events and is just sort of like incredibly analytical. It's worked and it's worked and it's worked and the first time that you experience that it's not enough
Mhm.
is breaks your brain.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think a lot of us have that, especially I feel like I don't know. I think a lot of us can relate to that,
Yeah.
where it's like
Yeah.
it's not enough, and what do I do? And we have the bad instinct to isolate, and that's what we're
Mhm.
watching Annabeth do.
Right.
And I think to me there was something that was so important on a personal scale, on a sort of on a global scale in terms of where I think we are in the world, to
Mhm.
sort of shirk this idea that when you are afraid and when you think you can't manage, that you should go off by yourself and just sort of like, I'll just think
Mm.
harder. Like
Mhm.
I'll just be alone harder and it'll work.
Yep.
And to have someone sort of be like, actually, what if there's another way?
Yeah.
And I think that that is so it's kind of like the advice that I needed to hear last year. And I think it's advice that a lot of us need to hear. I think we're knowing more and more and we're being increasingly isolated, and it's a really
Mm.
dangerous 1-2 punch. And
Hmm.
I think it's to me just really useful to get to watch characters understand that the way through is going to be together, and that was exciting. I think
Is it Christmas music?
Gong Gong. No, it's reggae. Uh, um, um, I think I lost my train of thought with the dulcet tunes. I don't remember what I was talking about. I
Um,
don't recall.
Isolating in an increasingly overwhelmingly
Yes,
knowledgeable world.
yes, yeah. I think while working hand in hand, working together. Oh, that's what I was going to say. It's another thing that I think is there was a day that I remember where we'd all sort of been, or most of us had been launched, or we were halfway launched. And we had this day where it was kind of pens down, and we
Mhm.
just talked about the relationship between Percy and Annabeth. And sort of like I think a really smart thing
That's
where it's
wild.
like
People should be just like sitting down and talking about the relationship between Percy and
the,
Annabeth.
th- the thing I think happens is that we all know it. We all know it. Like
Right.
we
Mhm.
all get it, but that can lead to a thing where we all have a version in our heads, and
Mm.
we're also like not thinking about, especially when you're sending people off, how seven's connecting to four is connecting to two. It's sort of like, I know
Sure.
what it is in
Mm.
my episode, but like to sort of put your pens down and say, okay, we all think we know what we're doing, but let's compare notes and see if it all is making sense together. So I think that it's very easy once you're in your episode to be focused on the story within your episode and not the
Mm.
story as it connects to the larger story. And I think initially it felt like a sort of linear story of Percy and Annabeth get back from camp, get back from or their summer holiday,
Mhm.
and suddenly it's sort of like, is there a gulf between us that wasn't there before? How do we bridge it? And there was a version that was sort of like a linear getting sort of reforming that relationship.
Yeah.
And I think out of that pens down day came, what if it's a little more complicated than that? What if it's not just a sort of straight shot towards, you know, they find each other more and more every episode?
Mhm. Mhm.
And what are the complicating factors that, in a way that feels very true to life, it's sort of like we keep circling back to this instincts that maybe are, that make this relationship challenging in a way that I think for a story that lasts volumes, I think is useful to have it be a little
Yeah.
bit more complex. And so I think that's another thing that sort of after diving into the episode and then diving in again, sort of after that conversation, was sort of it being that moment in that they have together, sort of them getting finally bridging it, as opposed to sort of bridging it sort of more towards the top of the episode and sort of already
Mhm.
being towards, Annabeth is sort of the flashbacks, all of it is sort of making her revert backwards instead
Yeah.
of uh,
Mm.
yeah. So sorry, now I'm losing my train of thought a little bit.
No, that's brilliant. What you just articulated, I think, is just such a great way of rephrasing their or conceptualizing their fatal flaws. That Percy's superpower is empathy, and that Annabeth is this over intellectualizer. I will fix it if I just try harder. And if I
Yeah.
just think harder about it, I will be able to find my way through. And I've
Yeah.
been like, my spiral in the past like 8 months has been that like Annabeth's fatal flaw is not hubris, it's perfectionism. But I do
Mm.
think like ultimately, like that's just kind of a language thing. And like what you're
Yeah.
saying is it's all wrapped up into one. Like the over intellectualizing whatever is the same thing as like the perfectionism and hubris, and the loyalty is the same thing as the empathy and the emotional intelligence, and that is just
Totally.
at the core of them. Yeah.
Totally. I think in revisiting that scene they have together, I think Annabeth's instinct is do it right. And
Mm-mm.
Percy's instinct is do right. And they're sort of finding what's in between the two, you know? And I think, yeah, and I think a lot of us sort of sit in one or the other. And so you just got to find the middle.
Wow, literally the it that is
Yeah.
in between, that special
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, you just broke my brain a little bit. Carter, ask another question. I need to sit with that for a second.
We had a quick question, I guess, about the monster donut Calogia situation.
Yeah.
How I guess the broad question is, how do you think about, I guess, Easter eggs or things from the book that are sort of like not necessarily like plot essential, but are like touch points that people
Yeah.
like to talk about, like to return to in the books, and how, yeah, I guess how to migrate those things when you have obviously very different storytelling constraints, and where
Totally.
not everything is going to migrate in the same form.
Totally. I I wish I remembered. The thing that is the most vague to me is the is that actually, like, I sort of, before this I reread the outline, the initial sort of sketch of the episode, the outline, the first script. I read all of it and I was trying to
Yeah.
remember how did that come back in, and all I can really remember is that I feel like I pitched Craig a big idea and 10% of it was the bracelet. And the bracelet was the thing that he was like, that makes sense to me, like that we're gonna keep. And then the other 90 cents went away, 90% went away. And I think I think the Monster Donuts thing was sort of like, oh, well, that's just, it was sort of like it was one of those things that there are some things about the show that are sort of like hard fought, like, how do we make it work? And there are some things that I think happen so fast that it's like, I don't remember this episode before this was this way. Like, I don't remember
Yeah.
it being a big conversation about like, how do we get Monster Donuts in? I think it was sort of like bracelet, charm, cereal box, Monster Donuts. And I'm pretty sure Daphne Olive is the person who was like, that's what it is. And so it was just, I remember it being just like very fast and very like, and I think that's also useful is like, the episode is not, in a way that is not always the case. There was space. Like, it didn't feel like a distraction. It
Mm-mm.
didn't feel like this is,
Mhm.
our brain should be over here instead of over there. It just felt like a further rendering of the world, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
sort of like a, why wouldn't we do that nod to it? So I think it came about fast. I think Daphne Olive is the one who like connected those dots so cleanly. But yeah, but it happened early and it was easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the adaptive changes, I feel like when Luke says cult half blood in this
Yeah.
episode, this is like a big deal for us. And
Yeah.
just the like, Luke and your camp have history, and
Yeah.
we got to ask Charlie. We were like, "What's that history? Is it your mom? It's your mom, right?" And he was like, "Well, yeah, of course." And it like, not that we didn't know that as readers and whatnot, but something about the idea of Luke really growing up knowing who his enemy is, even before he
Yeah.
gets to camp, felt like a
Yeah.
really big deal to us. Not that it wouldn't make sense within the world of the books or anything, but obviously we don't know that and we don't get to see that. And so this like really like this idea that Luke and Thalia are anti-camp before they even get to camp.
Yeah.
Was that also something that, like, I don't remember, the version of the episode when that wasn't in, or was that a bigger
That's the
deal?
opposite. That was
Yeah.
definitely a bigger deal.
Oh,
That was a
oh.
bigger deal. We
Yeah.
talked about that a lot. It's because it's one of those things where I don't. It just, every tether one way or another just felt like huge, like maybe like piloting a ship. Like, if you just tilt it a little bit to the left,
Mm-mm.
like what does that do to
Yeah.
everything?
Mhm.
Um, And what does that mean for the years that Luke had at camp?
Yes.
Because
Was
there
he
Yeah.
were
plotting? Was
years.
he
Was he
scheming?
that literally like was he plotting the whole time? Was did he sort of like did he come in really walls up and then he
Mhm, mhm.
sees his adopted little sister having a good time and feeling safe and he's like, well, maybe like is it more complicated? I sort of am always of the
Mhm.
vote of it's more complicated.
Yeah.
And I think for lots of reasons, I think that that's a useful frame. In part because I think that Luke is at his best when he is moved by passion, but also is smart.
Yeah.
And so I think that sort of Annabeth's reaction to camp, complicating his relationship to camp. What
Mm,
happens to Thalia outside of camp? Like it's all very
Mm,
complicated for
mm.
Luke. But
yeah.
I think something that I think that he and Thalia are clear on is like we got to take care of this little one.
Mhm,
And I
mhm,
think that
mhm.
with that as sort of like probably the headline of that trip and that journey, for that to be happening, for her to be blossoming, for all of that, that I think makes it hard to continue to be completely anti, you know. And so I think that that's something that maybe we'll get to explore is sort of like what his journey was, but it was
Yeah.
definitely a huge conversation.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's really interesting to hear because I it felt huge to me and I couldn't tell if I was being insane or not. And there's also like there's one line in episode 1 where Annabeth's talking to the tree, she's having her Cinderella moment and she says like
Hmm.
even before Luke left or even before like all of this happened, like you were the only one I could talk to. So
Hmm.
that really in combination with this episode made me feel like Luke, he had his walls up and that like he, after Thalia died, that he did change in like many ways and it was not like fully ever Camp Half Blood pilled at any point in time.
Yeah.
As far as through lines and especially from 203 into 204, we've been picking up a lot on like creating and establishing and evoking the full world of mythology for these demigods beyond gods, demigods, mortals, monsters.
Hmm.
There's also everyone involved in the natural world, and Grover gets great lines in this episode about it's more than just monsters and teaching about Pan, and obviously we're thinking about monsters through questioning Tyson and eventually Polyphemus as well.
Yeah.
But we have been as we've been like figuring out like how are we going to choose a side, and that like maybe ultimately it's not about choosing a side, it's about choosing the gray area, that it's been really important to like illustrate what that gray area is and that it is more than gods and monsters, especially with the undead in this episode. I feel like Percy, it's so funny to me that we walk out of 203 being like, you can't just like you're gonna kill all these campers and what about the mortals, and then Percy and Annabeth are like, well, we can just yeet the dead guys like because they're dead. And I'm like, whoa guys, come on, Clarice just
Yeah.
did this whole thing. I
Yeah.
was like, are we supposed to be feeling like, the entire world needs reform? It's not just,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It feels that was another conversation that we had. No, it feels, and you, it feels true. It's sort of like you inherit these stories of what's good and what's bad, and you just buy it, and it's that simple.
Mhm. Mhm,
And
mhm.
I don't know that there was a conscious choice. I think if anything, it's maybe like a Rick thing, where it's sort of like we just so start happening in this book to meet the characters who were in the in between.
Mm,
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
I think it's turned up in 4 because of what we do with the soldiers and what we do with Clarice and the
Mhm,
soldiers, which is
mhm.
not really, if I'm remembering correctly, and I do have a very bad memory, it's not really the same sort of shape in the books of sort of her
Mhm, mhm.
developing this relationship with them, and that to me was a really exciting idea.
Yeah.
Was because a true bully sees someone who's beneath them and is like,
Mhm,
well, more someone to bully down, and
mhm.
instead she who has the same sort of like power above her, Aries, as these guys do, instead of deciding like, well, I'm his daughter, so like it's sort of like actually she develops this sort of kinship with them
yeah.
that I
Yeah.
thought was just like a character choice that immediately tells you something different about this version of Clarice. Um, and the idea that she can help people whose stories have been told for them and whose
Mhm.
stories have been sort of put down in the history books as loser, She
Mhm.
gets to help them rewrite that story, she hopes. And I think that that was sort of like Annabeth and Percy can't know that that happened. Like they just don't know that. They don't know that there was
Yeah.
sort of like to them it's like these are they are dead already.
Mhm.
They were ready to fight, like they're ready to attack us. Like there's like they're of Aries. It's just like
Mhm.
how would I, for what reason would they know that these are like people who have
Yeah.
goals of going to Elise? Like they don't know that. And so it sort of it works, but I do think it's sort of it's a theme of the season, the last few episodes, but also the books of just
Yeah.
like the gray area and how vast the gray area is. That
Yeah.
it's not just like everybody steps into the gray area. Now we all agree, right? It's like no, actually, there are five of us here, and we all have different things, opinions on what's going to happen next and what
Yeah.
should happen next. And so I think, yeah, that I think was something that we just inherited
Yeah.
from
Mm.
the books.
Yeah.
Uh, just was because next we're going to meet another person who sort of exists in a separate category from just monster and demigod, monster and mortal. And so I love the next episode. I love all the episodes, but the
Oh,
next episode is just so good. And yeah, I'm excited to see people to see what happens with that.
yeah. The choice of who to sacrifice to win the battle is something that I feel like is a line I'm going to repeat like constantly throughout our episodes for the next 4 seasons. Who is
Yeah,
the choice who we're going to sacrifice to win this battle? Who are we all?
yeah,
Are you guys? We might be sacrificing. Wow, I just said we to refer to Team Luke. Oh no, Luke might be sacrificing. Oh, Luke might be sacrificing campers and mortals, but are the gods sacrificing the monsters? I don't know. Um,
yeah,
there are a couple like really just like funny things about this episode that we would love to just ask you about, like the peanut butter jelly scene. The concept of putting the peanut butter jelly sandwich together while doing therapy with Clarice. Was this in the
yeah.
action lines of the script?
Yes, this goes in the category of wrote it in fast. It was there, and then I think there was a moment when I almost took it out because I was like not personally tied to it, and Craig was like, "No, that stays in. Like that, like that's gonna stay." And so I had I in my mind, I think it was something that I was seeing in the books, and so I was like, "Oh, that works." And peanut butter and jelly,
Mhm.
different things combining. It just
Yeah,
sort of like
yeah.
it made sense. It wasn't load bearing to me, and then I think there was a moment where Craig was like, "You can't take that out." So
Mm.
yeah, yeah,
It's excellent in the sense that like there are a lot of peanut butter sandwich references in the books overall. Like a ton, like the
yeah,
May Castellan makes
yeah,
like moldy peanut butter. There's moldy peanut butter jelly sandwiches filling her house, and
yeah,
Tyson's famous battle cry is like for peanut butter. I love peanut butter.
yeah.
So it did feel very like legacy Riordan to have.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it
Oh
also like looks so strikingly like it looks like the PG version of like bartender hearing you out
Yes,
in such
yes.
an evocative transporting way
Yeah,
where it would not have occurred to me reading the books to like
yeah,
have the
because he's
mental image
standing
of
up.
like dimly lit, he's standing up
yeah.
and the
No,
table is kind of
totally.
high.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So it was in the action lines, but I think, and this is probably, Craig is so good at this stuff. My guess is that when he saw it, he saw that. Like he saw the
Mm,
PG version. And so in his head, it was like, oh, we're not taking it out because I know what it's going to look like. And it's going to look like that. It's going to be, I'm a safe place for you to, open up a little bit more than you usually do. And so that's probably what the
yeah.
what the arc was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Mythomagic set being
Yeah.
used as the is this a I mean, we got to see it on set, which was like really, really
Yeah.
cool. And like I got to see that there were
Yeah.
D20s in the Mythomagic box, and I got to talk to Craig about that and be like, oh, so Mythomagic is a D20 based system. That's nuts.
Yeah.
When are we getting the
Yeah.
game? He was like, I
Yeah.
can't talk about that.
Yeah.
But the decision to use that as like the physical prop, is that like was that a writer's room thing or a props thing?
I think the sort of the challenge put to me was to really clearly define how the Sea of Monsters worked so that we wouldn't have,
Mm.
because the question in the room was always like, well, why do they have to go to Cersei's Island? Like, why do they have to do it that way? Why do they have we kept saying that? Like what if
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's and so just really establishing that's not how it works. The way that it works is you just will go through these challenges
Right,
to
the
get to where you
trials.
want to
Mhm.
go. Our trials are how it's going to work. And I think the version of it that I did was it was Monopoly pieces. It was like they had a board game on set or on set on the ship, and they were like, okay, we'll just this represents this, and this represents that, and this represents this, and so just to be really clear, like you can see this is how it works. And Craig was like, well, I have an idea. And so then it became
My nerd, Craig!
instead of this hat has to represent, the sirens, it was like, what if we just had myth and magic pieces? And it was like, well, if we can do that, then let's do that. And so that's how it came to be.
That's a stroke of brilliance. And I'm still waiting to give Disney Corporation all of my money.
Truly.
I don't know why they're let's get that going, guys.
Let's get
TikTok,
it going.
Mouse, TikTok. I think my last question is burping. Excellent. The burping brothers.
Yeah.
This was just delicious.
I thought we were going to end here. I thought we might.
We end on the burping?
I thought that we might. Yes.
Absolutely brilliant. Care to comment on your genius? Brotherly love.
This is another example of fast, quick. And I thought that I was going to get a note. I thought for sure it was one of those things. Because I think the sort of holding spot was this is an episode where I was really tracking the girls throughout, and then Percy really once they were on the ship. And there was, and it was sort of like, we need to check in with Percy and Tyson, especially if we're going to feel the loss of Tyson. We need to take a step in their relationship as brothers. And what that feels like, and to feel a moment of like the best case scenario of like what it feels like to, because Percy has this weird, understandable relationship of like, you just walked into my life and now you're here and now you're claimed and you got claimed so fast. And like, how did I, it's really complex. And I think, just having a moment of it could be really nice to have a brother. It could be really nice for us to sort of get to be, yes, we're facing, Herculean, shouldn't say Hercules, but we're facing we're facing these massive, no, these gargantuan odds. But we have these moments of just like what it is to be kids. And so that's what it was. I sort of, it was one of the last, because I usually write the scenes that are coming fastest first. And those are usually the more emotional ones for me. So this was the last scene that I wrote, and the first time I sent it the script, I was like, what do brothers do?
What do boys do? They burp, right?
What do boys do? Burp. I have a younger brother, and like it's like sort of like what did we like get up to, so that's that's how that happened. But truly, on the complete opposite side of the final moment of Percy at the end of the ship, this was another thing that I wrote that was like, this is not going to stay in. Like this is so be careful what you write, because you never. But no, I think it's great. I think it's perfect. I think it's got like such a great button to it with the explosion, and that's that.
We do have to say, like, the humor in this episode is so of a piece, and like you can follow the different characters' sensibilities through things, but at the same time, all of that being said, I do feel like this episode is probably the funniest one. The bits, the lines are so. When Mitch from Blockbuster says,
"Speak on it, Carter. Speak on it."
This is
Carter's favorite line.
That is the best line of
Carter will not stop evangelizing this line.
I have to say, I think that's a Tamara pitch. That feels like Tamara to me. Tamara is hilarious. She to me owns Mitch. Like she is the voice of Mitch. And so I have to believe that that's something that she said. I have to. It was really cool getting to go on to set. I remember going, it's my first time on a set or something that I did. And I went to Crafty, and like I was standing next to like these 3 zombified men of different backgrounds, which is another thing we talked about for this, was like making that choice. But like standing behind the 3 of them and being like, hi, I'm Shae. Like, I'm the reason why you're in all of that makeup. I hope that you like it. Like, sorry. And then getting to see, and it's funny because like I'm seeing Mitch, and I feel like I'm seeing like the biggest celebrity because he was such like we loved him so much in the room as a non-cast entity. We're just like
Yeah.
Mitch, and so I was just like, oh my god, that's Mitch. It was yeah, so it was really fun. Yeah, it was great. It was I'm glad. I'm glad that there was levity in the episode because spoiler alert, things things end in a rough spot. And so I think it's good to have some lightness before we get there so it's not, browbeating of despair.
This has been the best thing ever. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about in this episode that we didn't give you like the chance to mention or say anything about?
I'm looking over the
Yeah.
things that I wanted to make sure that I said. And I think I'm seeing most of it. I think the only thing that I was again going through the old versions and I think that just jumped out to me was the sort of the twinned quartets that happen in this episode.
Mm.
And how I remember thinking a lot about it's not as simple as like you shift a piece over and like Annabeth is now the Thalia. It's not as simple as that. But I do think that both of these groups one of the things that marries the two storylines is that they are both about to realize how serious stakes can be in a
Mhm,
new
Mm.
way.
mhm,
Like
mhm,
they've experienced amazing, incredible, terrifying things, but it's the moment that sort of is a before and after we suffer this loss that really
mhm.
changes the way that I think that they'll approach things in the future. Um, so that was just another thing that sort of perusing was leaping out at me. But this was a really fun episode to write. I am excited for it to be out in the world. I'm excited to see how it's received. And with this show, the first time I met on it, I think I said this. It's never felt more resonant to me to write about young people who are inheriting a world that their parents messed up and
Yeah.
being asked to fix all of it while their parents don't even really like they help a little bit but in like weird ways. And I think it's been not just good for like being a writer in this world but also just being a person to get to work on a show that's tackling something that feels so real and so resonant and with
Mhm,
just
mhm.
amazing people, crew, cast, everyone. So yeah, I just feel very grateful.
Yeah.
I feel very grateful to sit down with you both. And long live Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
Long live Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I can't believe what you just said just reminded me that like we spent this whole episode like with Annabeth being like, you don't understand what it's like to lose a sibling. And then at the end, whoops,
Exactly.
whoop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-oh, Fallout. I can't wait to see
Totally.
episode. We haven't seen episode 205 yet, so we're
I'm
we're really
excited for you.
excited.
It's so good. It's so good. And as a lover of Cersei and a lover of the Sirens,
Mm,
I think
mm.
that we do like they're like just like really cool stuff. I think
Yeah.
that it's really cool stuff. I remember gasping when I saw some of it, and so I had read it. I'm excited for the journey. It's really fun to be right in the middle of the rollout.
Yes, and we really eagerly look forward to talking to you again in the future about our favorite book, The Titan's Curse. Uh,
Oh, excited for that.
you did a really good job of not saying anything about season 3. I know it's so hard for everybody, but you nailed it. And is there anything you would like to promote, or like if you want to drop social handles or anything like that? You could also just name a really good book or movie, whatever you desire.
Ooh, okay. My social is my name, just Shae Worthy, ShaeWorthy. I'm just on Instagram. I think that's true. Something great that I'm. Oh. There's this poem that I love. It's called God, and it's resonated with me for reasons that are related to the show because of a line early on. It's something like hold on, I'm gonna find it and
Please
I'm going to
do.
see if I can read. I used to have it memorized.
Oh, I would love a reading.
I'm just going to read the first few lines. It makes sense notionally, a painless hypothesis for our predicament. Crayoned face to bridge the gulf between grace and the lightning storm. And I read that and I was like, is this about Percy Jackson? I don't think it is. Like, it was like Grace and the Lightning Storm, and it's really about faith. So yeah, I just was like reading that in the New Yorker, and I was like, I was very in a Thalia brain space at the time. And I was like, wait a minute, that's wild. So yeah, that's my recommendation. Read poetry, it's good for you. That's all.
You gave me chills. I can't wait to talk about the Titan's Curse. I'm so impatient.
Yeah.
I'm like, want to be season 3 already.
Heck
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Shae. Thank you everybody for listening. Tune in next week for some sirens. We'll see y'all then. Bye.
Bye.
Well.